I can fix it, but you're never going to pitch good again. I was on Demerol. I said, I couldn't pitch good to begin with. Don't worry about it. When I woke up, instead of a 1-inch scar, it was a 6.5-inch scar with Dr. Ryan staring down at me. You will never, ever pitch again. This is for everyday life. You might play golf one day and you might play catch with your kids in the yard, but you'll never, ever pitch again. It is physically impossible. You have nothing there. I didn't care. I graduated and I started coaching and teaching across the state of Texas, eventually finding myself at Reagan County High School in Big Lake, Texas, where the movie starts. Town of 3,500 people, oil and gas town, a whole lot of poverty, migrant workers coming through, kids changing all the time. The day I took the job, my high school kids came to my classroom to ask me why I took the job. Coach, we've only won one game each year for the 3 years before you got here. We're not any good. They're probably going to cut our program and make more money for football. People come through here on their way to somewhere else. And I went back to when I was 19. My first season at Reagan County High School, I had 8 kids show up for baseball season. I don't know how much y'all know about baseball, but 8 is not enough. So now that the man who was, when he was in high school, couldn't hardly pass, was now teaching physics and chemistry, I did what I thought I should and offered a free aid to anybody come out for my baseball team. We were so bad, I only had 2 takers. And they made straight A's and couldn't throw. But that gave us 10 kids. We started the season in 1998. These kids have been talked down to, put down, cursed at, hit their whole lives. The day I took the job, the other coaches came to me after my kids came to me and they said, these kids are losers, they're a lost cause. You're not going to help them, and nobody can. We don't care how good a coach you are. These kids are going to fail. They're probably not even going to graduate. They're going to go to work in the oil and gas fields like their dads and their granddads did, and there's nothing you or anybody else can do about it. The first thing I had to teach these kids didn't have anything to do with baseball. We had to learn about self-respect. We learned how to pull our pants up, where they go. When I told them where that came from, they put a belt on too. If you want to know later, ask me. We learned to turn our hats around, take our jewelry off. We learned how to respect ourselves, because until you do that, you can't respect anybody else. Once we got that down, we took it in the classroom. We did our homework. We turned it in on time. We opened doors for teachers. We said yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and otherwise closed our mouths, because we have dreams we need to chase. We're here to learn. When we got that down, we rebuilt our baseball field. Infield, outfield, grass, dirt, fence, batting cage, trees, parking lot. These kids respected the work because they had done it themselves. They did not want anybody coming in there and beating them at home. We put we were the Reagan County Owls. We painted our mascot on the center field fence, this big, mean-looking owl. You know how hard it is to make a mean-looking owl? That took us a while. But we got done. That first season at Reagan County, we didn't learn a whole lot about baseball, but those kids won 10 games, and we did not lose at home. In 1999, I had 63 kids come out for my baseball team. In a small class 2A school, I had more kids than the football coach had. And that did not make him happy. He is a big fat jerk, and I did not care. Dream killer number 4 stops me on my way to baseball practice one day, the athletic director, football coach at Reagan County High School, to tell me that I've taken these kids as far as I can. These kids are losers. That's all they're ever going to be. He goes, there are 2 types of people in this world. There are people who know how to get the job done, and there are nice people. Jimmy, you may be one of the best baseball coaches I've ever seen, but you're too nice. People like me are always going to come out ahead of you because I know how to step on people. And I thought, and they put you in charge of everybody. How nice. See, the problem with this little talk that this coach was giving me, 2 of my kids heard it. Before I could get to the field, it had spread through my team like wildfire. For the first 2 weeks in 1999, we had 2 games, 15-1, 15-0. We didn't have 15. I don't know what to do. I stood on home plate. I sent my kids down the left field line, and I said a prayer. What can I do to help these kids? How can I push them without breaking them? How can I get them to see that there are more dreams than what's right here? How can I get them to see past today? The answer was quick and it was simple. Go down there and teach them what your grandfather taught you. It turns out that I was the perfect person to be at this point in my life at this school. I had been through everything these kids had gone through. I'd been cursed at, hit, and talked down to my whole life. I'd been told how sorry I was. That was this group of kids. I walk down the left field line. I start talking about hopes and dreams and setting goals for yourself. I get into about 20 minutes. I think, I sound pretty good. Ernest would be happy. I said, you guys have to make a ladder of success. Each rung is a little bit further than you think you can go so that when you reach that one, you make the next one even further. You have to go out and live life. You can't let life live you. Don't let somebody else dictate to you what you're going to do with yours. Sounding good and positive with myself, my catcher looks at me. He's the 18-year-old senior on my team. And he goes, Coach, we think you still want to play baseball. I said, no, sir, I want to stay married. Thank you very much. He said, Coach, but the way you teach us the game, we know your heart's still in it. We know how to act and react to every situation that comes up. We know what the other team's going to do before they do it because of you. When you throw us batting practice, we can't hit it. And I said, that's because you can't hit. My 18-year-old catcher looks me in the eye and he said, why are you telling us to chase our dreams if you're not willing to do it yourself? And I said, you're 18, you need to shut up. If we start winning, you try out again. I said, I can. I went through the reasons. I've got 3 kids. I'm a teacher and a coach. I'm not rich. I've got kids I got to bring up. I've got you guys. I got a classroom full of kids. This is my job. This is my dream. This is what I'm educated for. This is what I am supposed to be doing. What if we win a district championship, Coach? School had never won a baseball championship. We win a district championship, you find a tryout. For 20 minutes, I argue with these kids on every reason I should never step back on a professional mound, and after 20 minutes, I did what every parent in this country does. I caved in. If you guys win a district championship, I will find a tryout somewhere. In the back of my mind, I was thinking 2 things. 1, this is going to be humiliating, of which I could do nothing about. And 2, my wife's going to kill me. So I didn't tell her. The only people that knew about the bet were my high school kids, my 8-year-old son, and my dad. When I told my dad, he said, son, even at 35, you're not very bright, are you? Thanks, Dad. We start the season over. That's what these kids needed to hear. And I thought, I will make this bet with them if it will help them play better. I'm teaching them that I will step out of my comfort zone if they do the same thing. We start winning. Then we start winning by a lot. 3 months later, the bet has been forgotten, and we're playing for a district championship. We're down by 2 runs in the last inning, and history would dictate we're not going to come back and win that game. They score 3 runs, they win the game, and it is one of the best sights I've ever seen in my life. They're hugging the trophy, they're hugging their parents, they're hugging each other, they're taking pictures. I'm leaned up against the backstop thinking, I am a pretty good coach. Then I remembered I'm also the bus driver, I better go warm it up. I go back to the bus, and as I look out my window, I had picked up the phone on the bus, and I called the newspaper guy to find out who, when, and where we're playing in the playoffs. As I do this, I look out and I see kids celebrating an accomplishment that not even they thought they could accomplish. Unbelievable. And as I watch this at 35 with kids of my own and watching these kids learn how to dream, I realized I had tears in my eyes. And tears in a coach's eyes are the last thing kids on his team need to see. My second baseman popped up on the top step of the bus, and when he saw me, he started giggling, and I said, shut up. And then he stuck his arm out, and in his hand he had a baseball, and it said, Reagan County Owls, District 1-2A Champs, 1999, and everybody had signed it. I started crying harder. Big, fat coach in the driver's seat crying. And as he walked away from me, he patted me on the shoulder, and he said, we did our part, now it's your turn. Yeah, oh no. I've got to go do this. Every kid got on that bus, coach, we did our part, now it's your turn. The 4-hour drive home, all I could think of, your wife's going to kill you. So I didn't tell her. I like breathing. I'm going to go embarrass myself. I'll do horrible. They'll go, hey, thanks for coming out, go home. And I go back and tell my kids I tried out and I just wasn't good enough. We eventually end baseball season. We get knocked out of the playoffs. Lose the third game of a 3-game series, 7-6 in the second round. Baseball's over. School ends. The tryout I had found for me was at Dallas Baptist University, 5.5 hours away from San Angelo. There were going to be 600 or 700 kids there to try out. That is a lot of people to try out in front of when you are old and fat. I thought, this is going to be embarrassing. My dad called me the day before I was supposed to go, and he said, son, I just heard something. Tampa Bay Devil Rays are having a tryout here in Brownwood at Howard Payne University on the same day. Son, it says here the first 60 or 70 kids that get here get to try out. Now, Jimmy, they may count you twice. But if you get here early enough, they may let you throw. San Angelo and Brownwood are an hour and 10 minutes apart. My wife did not know about the bet. Dallas Baptist was 5.5 hours each way with 600 or 700 kids there to try out. I chose Brownwood because it was a smaller group to embarrass myself in front of, and it came with an excuse. This Saturday in June of 1999, as my wife walked out the door to go to work, my kids, who are 8, 4, and 1, are eating breakfast at the table, and she turned around and said, what are you guys going to do today? We're going to go see Grandpa. Yeah, which we did, so don't look at me like that. A little judgmental, aren't we? I drive up at Howard Payne University's baseball field. I park down the left field line. I see these kids getting out of their cars. They're tall, they're thin, they're athletic looking, they're smiling from ear to ear because they're chasing that dream. I look down at the gut hanging over the elastic band of my softball pants, which is not the picture painted in the movie, because we chose Dennis. And I didn't even know I said it out loud. I said, what have I done? My 8-year-old son sitting next to me said, you made a promise, it's time to get out. You want to walk home? I get my kids out of the car. We go up to the sign-up table. Doug Gassaway is about a 65-year-old scout for Tampa Bay. The kid in front of me signs up. He walks off. Gassaway looks at me and says, how many kids did you bring to the tryout? I brought 3. He said, no, 2 tryout. And I said, well, let me explain something. I made a promise to a group of kids who do not believe in adults that if they did something nobody thought they could do, I would try to do something I know I can't do. If you will let me throw, I can go home and tell those kids I lived up to my word. I made a promise and I did it. If you don't, I'm going to go find somebody else who will, because I'm not going to break my word to these kids. When I get done, he looks up at me with a serious face and he goes, son, why didn't you just shave your head like every other coach in America? Where were you 3 months ago? I'm going to let you throw, but you're going to throw last. These kids are here for serious business. They want to be ball players. They got to throw from the outfield. They got to hit. They got to be timing a 60-yard run. You want to run? I said, no way. I'll help you time them. It's going to be a while, Jimmy. Over the course of the next 4 hours or so, the kids and I have a picnic. We play games. We get sunburned, and yes, I change diapers. After the 4.5 hours, he calls me out to the mound. He hands me a baseball, and he said, how many pitches do you need to warm up? And I said, to embarrass myself, none. I would just like to pitch quickly, run off the mound, hopefully remembering to grab my kids on the way to my car. That's it. He chuckled at me, and he walks back behind the backstop. He picks up his radar gun. He said, Jimmy, anytime you're ready. The young guy catching me gives me a sign for a fastball, and I wind up and I throw it. It is a perfect pitch. I am fat and 35. I admire it. I threw a strike. I look up over the catcher's head behind the screen as Gassaway doing this with the radar gun. I don't even throw hard enough to register. More embarrassing than I thought. When I finally get done, my 1-year-old's crying. They've been in the sun all day. I go to get my kids in the car and turn the air on. Gas away, the scout meets me in my car. He said, "I remember you. 15 years ago at Ranger Junior College, you were a football star. Everybody wanted to make a picture out of." And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Back then you threw 86 to 88 miles an hour." I said, "Yes, sir, that's right." He said, "Well, Jimmy, I don't know what you've done in your time off, aside from eat. But the first pitch you threw without warming up was 94. Everything after that went up to 98. Now, as a male, you want to go do a happy dance right now." You're like, "I throw 98. As an educator, I was going, and I threw it at high school kids. I'm getting sued, that's what I'm getting. Gasaway looks at me, he goes, "You're old." And I said, "Well, thank you. But you throw 98 and you're left-handed. I got to call it in. They're going to think I'm crazy. But if I don't call it in, you could sign with somebody else and I'll get fired." I later found out that early in his life he had a drinking problem. So when he called in a 35-year-old lefty that threw 98, they thought he was drinking and hung up on him. The last thing he said to me as I got in my car with my kids is, "Don't be surprised if you get a phone call." And I think it was at that point I thought, I didn't embarrass myself, that's cool. I might get a phone call. I drive home an hour and 10 minutes, the kids and I are in a great mood, we walk in the house, it's not one phone call, it's 12. And I am not the first one home. My wife hangs up the phone and turns around and said, "So, where have we been?" My middle child, who is 4 years old, my first daughter, the daughter who falls asleep on my chest in the recliner every night of her life, looks at her mom and says, "We're not supposed to tell you." The hole is just getting deeper. She looked at me and she said, "What were you thinking?" I said, "I'm a man, I'm not supposed to think." "What are you going to do now?" The same thing I was going to do before. I got a job in Fort Worth at a great big high school and the opportunity to work with more kids in a bigger environment. That's what I'm trained for, that's what I'm good at. This baseball thing never worked out. When I was supposed to be young and talented, that's a hard road. She said, "You better listen to the phone calls." Tampa wanted me to come back and throw again in 2 days to see if my arm had fallen off or I could actually throw that hard. I went back and it was raining so hard they had to hand me a brand new baseball every pitch. Sliding up to my knee in mud with my 3 kids watching again in the pouring rain, I threw 97 every pitch. They offered me a contract and I had a decision to make. Do I stay on this road that I know I am successful at, that I'm educated for, and that I really, really like, helping kids chase their dreams, or do I go and walk through that door I know I failed at so many times when I was supposed to be good, knowing that I could fail at any time? And what it came down to was a promise I made to a group of kids at Reagan County High School. And people everywhere, they're like, "Well, where are those kids now?" Well, they're in prison, but that's beside the point. Almost every one of those kids has put themselves through school. Their parents couldn't afford it. They worked their way through college. They've got degrees. Now they're married. They have kids. My third baseman flies helicopters for the Coast Guard out of Houston, saving people. That is cool. I called Matt one day. I said, "Matt, I sure would like to fly in your helicopter." He said, "Coach, go out in the bay and turn your boat over and I'll come get you." That is not what I had in mind. Great kids who I kept grounded and they kept me grounded. It was an amazing time in my life. I signed a minor league contract with Tampa because of those kids. If you ever start chasing your dream, you don't turn back, you don't look around, you chase it with everything you have, so you do not wake up one day and go, "What if?"